So let's take a little gab about this whole net neutrality thing. Oh, I hate that term because it is anything but neutral. Net neutrality, as it was enacted in 2015, imposed certain regulations and rules upon ISPs and other internet service providers. Not just the data transmitters. That's what I mean by ISPs, but also um, what do you want to call them? Social media sites, data peddlers, services like Netflix, the social media sites, of course, like Facebook. The great fear seems to be that without this governmental protection called net neutrality, then they're just going to do whatever they want. Those evil, messed up, bent out of shape companies are just going to rob us blind. They're going to go all over and do their own agenda and do whatever they want. I don't seem to remember them doing that before 2015. I don't know, there was one thing with Netflix, I think. But it was, I believe, Comcast versus Netflix. And Comcast was demanding more money from Netflix because they're like, you guys are using up a ridiculous amount of bandwidth. And you want the same price as everybody else that has our service? No, you need to pony up some more. It makes sense. I mean, you pay for what you use, just like any other place you go. If I want more water, I pay more. If I want to run my air conditioner at 68 degrees all day long in the middle of the hot, hot desert, I can. But I gotta pay for it. It should be the same way with the internet. I mean, why is there a difference? I mean, it's already set up that way. If you want a little trickle of pipe and you just need enough to check your email, it's dirt cheap. I'm not one of those guys. I consume massive chunks of gigabytes every month. I'm one of those addicts, okay? And so I pay more. And it's already set up that way. I pay more to my cable company for a faster connection and priority over the people in my neighborhood. And I think I have one of the plans that's just below the business tier. And cables, well, we won't get into the technical details, but the point being, I pay for the service that I desire, and I can pay almost as much or as little as I want, down to the minimum cost that Cox is willing to give me. So, what is everybody scared of? What am I scared of? Well, I think what everybody else is scared of is they're just convinced that all corporations are evil and that they will take advantage of their customers regardless of the cost to their own business. A lot of people have the feeling that ISPs in particular, companies like Comcast and Cox and Verizon, have monopolies in their region. There's usually only one or two land-based providers. Like where I live, we have a choice between Cox and Cox Cable and CenturyLink, which was the former Quest, I believe. So you can either have cable or DSL. And not everybody has that, and I understand that's a frustrating choice. Or a frustrating lack of choice, rather. Definitely not an ideal situation. But why do we want to go running to the government to fix it? Well, I have a feeling that's just because that's the easy solution that we all always do. You see something wrong, there ought to be a law! How many times do you hear that? Ought to be a law. Well, they made one. And I don't think most people realize how unusual what happened. Today is November 26th, 2017. And just a few days ago, the FCC actually repealed regulations. Very unusual. Don't normally do that once a law gets in, especially once a law that creates a government body. Gosh, the FCC's been around. Now I'm going to have to do a video on it, the history of the FCC at some point, because I'm quite interested myself. But the FCC's been around forever, and they've been around during the breakup of Ma Bell into all the Baby Bells, and then through their remerger back into AT&T as well, pretty much as landline-based telecom companies became more and more irrelevant. So what is everybody scared of? Well, they're scared that they're going to be stuck with those companies and they're going to be locked into something, or they're going to want a particular service and they'll have to pay more, or they won't be able to access their service, or their ISP will throttle them unless they pay more. By throttle, I mean they'll make it more difficult to connect, or your speed will be slower. Not too worried about that. Never had any problems beforehand, like I said. Again, yes, I've seen the meme. There was a few little incidences of cable companies bickering back and forth. Then it's a meme of about maybe 6 things that happened, and they were almost all between different internet companies, not between internet companies and their customers. Internet companies respect and in some cases fear their customers. I've seen some very unusual things happen with my cable connection in the time that I have been in the Phoenix Valley. Cox Communications went through a little period where they decided, hey, we're going to see what happens if we send out gentle reminders of, oh, hey, guess what? You used more than 6 gigabytes this month. You might have to pay for that at some point. They did that for a while, and then they just mysteriously stopped. Now that I may be lucky because I actually live in a place where there is someone else to go running to, but I think most of us have that option now, and it's very few places that don't. And even if you are stuck with just one, and don't forget that, yeah, your cell phone provider counts as one. I know it's not ideal. I would hate to have to use a cellular hotspot instead of having my nice fast cable connection. I know that's not really the same thing, but there are ways to get on. The problem is the ridiculous amount of money that it takes to start up one of these companies, because of the infrastructure that you have to lay is already expensive enough. But on top of that, you have to meet local government regulations. You have to get with the city or the county, the state, and you have to make the FCC happy as well. Little bitty startup companies cannot afford to jump through all those legal hoops. Can't be done. They don't have the startup capital. And the ones that do, the venture capitalists, are probably more interested in doing something else. In order to come into a new market, there has to be a demand for your service. I can't think of anything that would create demand more quickly than my cable provider upsetting me. I wouldn't have anybody to flee to for a while. But if they upset enough customers, you better believe there's someone that's going to come in and fill that void. But not if all the damned regulations are in the way. Now, that's just how it stands right now. The big thing that will happen next, and it happens with all government agencies, is that the FCC, will calcify. Are I will only be drawn to the net neutrality issue while it is an issue, while it is in the public spotlight. Now, the government and the cable providers and all the other telecom companies, Comcast, Verizon, Google, Facebook, once this entity of the FCC is set and created, they will spend tons of money to insert former employees, to lobby, and to make it so that that regulatory agency does not work for you and me, but it works for them. All government agencies eventually go this direction. Started off with the best intentions. Often they work well for a while. Then we ignore them. Then those who seek power will work harder than you and I have any desire to get exactly what they want and entrench themselves in the new bureaucracy. Happens every time. And we have this myth that monopoly is bad as well, but spend some time. Look up the history of Standard Oil. Who busted up Standard Oil? Who thought Standard Oil needed to be busted up? Not the customers. They were getting the cheapest oil they possibly could get. Nobody cared that Standard Oil was cheap, except for Standard Oil's competitors. The government has a way of inventing a problem, getting us all riled up so that we support whoever is seeking power at the time, and then using that path to entrench themselves. And when we turn our heads, all of a sudden 5 years will have gone by and the FCC will be working against us and not for us. Net neutrality is gone. Thank goodness.